January 23, 2020, seemed like an ordinary Thursday at the National Archives building in Washington, D.C. However, that day would be anything but ordinary for American historical researcher Dr. Jennifer Walsh. She was examining CIA files that had been declassified from 1960 to 1980. Cold War-era operations, agent reports, surveillance records. These files were documents from America's darkest period. At 2:30 p.m., Jennifer came across a file titled Operation Cool Classified. The cover of the file had D.N. Martin's Dino Crocetti written in large letters. Jennifer initially thought this was a mistake. Dean Martin, that famous singer and actor? Why would the CIA be interested in him? When she opened the file, what she saw shocked Jennifer. Inside were 247 pages of documents, hundreds of photographs, audio recording transcripts, and 20 years of surveillance reports. This wasn't just celebrity monitoring, this was a full intelligence operation. The first page contained this sentence: Subject Martin Dean, aka Dino Crocetti, is assessed as a Soviet intelligence asset. Immediate threat to national security. Jennifer didn't know at that moment that the files in her hands would expose not only Dean Martin's secrets, but the biggest secrets of all Hollywood and even America. 1961 was one of the most tense periods of the Cold War. Cuban crisis, Berlin Wall, nuclear arms race. America was under threat from everywhere, and the CIA was investigating all kinds of people against possible Soviet agents. Dean Martin's file had been opened on March 15, 1961. The first report was written by Agent Robert Kellerman. The opening sentences of the report were as follows. Subject Dean Martin, real name. Dino Paul Crocetti is an Italian-American singer and actor. Suspicious activities have been detected in the last 6 months. 1 meetings with Soviet diplomats, 2 meetings with suspicious characters in Las Vegas, 3 hard-to-track routes during foreign travels. Following this first report, the CIA had put Dean Martin into the official surveillance program under code name NICE-TC-LUB. People included in this program were potential enemy agents or individuals posing security threats. The photographs from the file were even more surprising. There were photographs showing Dean Martin entering the Soviet embassy in 1962. In another photograph, Dean was seen having dinner at a restaurant in Las Vegas with Alexei Volkov, who was suspected of being a KGB agent. However, the most shocking thing was the phone conversations found in the audio recording transcripts. What Dean Martin said in those phone conversations that the CIA listened to showed that he wasn't just an entertainer, but part of a much bigger game. The phone wiretapping report was dated October 12, 1962. The conversation between Dean Martin and an unknown person was as follows. Dean, package has been delivered. We're waiting for the response from Moscow. Unknown, timing is very important. You need to find out Kennedy administration's decision about Cuba. Dean. Does Frank know about these matters? Unknown, Sinatra must not know anything. This operation is very critical. The CIA analyst interpreted this conversation as follows. Subject Martin appears to be operating as Soviet courier. Cuban Missile Crisis period timing highly suspicious. Sinatra reference suggests larger Hollywood penetration. Dr. Jennifer Walsh couldn't believe what she was reading. Was Dean Martin really a Soviet agent? Or was the CIA paranoid? The continuation of the file contained more detailed surveillance reports. CIA agents were following Dean Martin 24 hours a day. Every place he went, every person he talked to, every number he called was recorded. In the 1963 reports, there were interesting details. Subject Martin frequently holds private meetings at Las Vegas Sands Hotel. Suspicious foreign nationals have been detected among participants. Meeting rooms are monitored with electronic surveillance. However, subject uses sophisticated counter-surveillance techniques. This report stated that Dean Martin used sophisticated counter-surveillance techniques. This wasn't just paranoid celebrity behavior. These were behaviors that required professional spy training. But the really shocking thing emerged in the 1964 reports. Documents showing that Dean Martin was not only being watched, but was also an agent working for the CIA. On page 89 of the file was a report titled Recruitment Successful. Date February 23, 1964. written by Agent Supervisor William Hayes. Subject Martin has been successfully recruited as asset. Initial contact through organized crime connections proved effective. Subject agreed to cooperation in exchange for protection of family members and career security. Assignment: Soviet Cultural Exchange Program infiltration. This document stated that Dean Martin had been recruited by the CIA. So Dean was initially a person under suspicion, but then he had started working for the CIA. The continuation of the report detailed Dean's assignments. Asset Martin will use entertainment industry connections to monitor Soviet cultural delegations visiting Las Vegas. 2. Report on suspicious activities within Hollywood left-wing circles. 3. Identify potential Soviet recruitment targets among celebrities. 4. Provide access to high-profile venues for agency operations. Dr. Jennifer Walsh now understood the situation. Dean Martin was neither a complete Soviet agent nor completely innocent celebrity. He was like a double agent. While the Soviets thought he was their agent, he was actually working for the CIA. The file also contained details of how Dean Martin was recruited. At the end of 1963, Dean's son, Dean Paul Martin, had been drafted into the military. The CIA had used this situation as leverage. They had threatened Dean with either "you work with us, or we can't guarantee your son's safety in the military." The work Dean Martin did for the CIA between 1965 to 1970 showed that he was not just a spy but also at the center of America's most dangerous operations. The list of work Dean Martin did as a CIA asset was quite long. Operation Red Carpet. Asterisk, asterisk. 1965. Asterisk, asterisk. During the Soviet cultural delegation's visit to Las Vegas, Dean organized a special show at the Sands Hotel. During the show, CIA agents entered Soviet diplomats' rooms and copied documents. Operation Hollywood Red 1966. Dean gave the CIA a list of actors and directors in Hollywood who were communist sympathizers. This list was later used for blacklisting. Operation Vegas Connection asterisk, asterisk, 1967. Asterisk, asterisk. Through Dean's mafia connections, the CIA used organized crime groups and anti-Castro operations in Cuba. The most surprising operation was Operation Rat Pack, which took place in 1968. The CIA had used Dean Martin to record phone conversations of Frank Sinatra and other Rat Pack members. Because Frank Sinatra had close relationships with the Kennedy family, and the CIA wanted to monitor these relationships. The file also contained reports that Dean Martin had written in his own handwriting. Frank returned from Hyannisport today. He said they had a 3-hour meeting with Bobby Kennedy. They talked about Cuba. According to Frank's statement, Kennedy administration is planning decisive actions in Cuba. More information needed for details. -DM. This was information that Dean Martin had sent to the CIA on April 15, 1968. Dean Martin was monitoring his closest friend Frank Sinatra for the CIA. However, in the early 1970s, things started to go wrong. Dean Martin's last report to the CIA showed that he wanted out of this business. According to the report dated March 3, 1971, Dean Martin no longer wanted to work for the CIA. His report contained these sentences: "This job is too heavy for me now. I'm tired of deceiving my friends. My son returned from Vietnam. My family is safe now. I want to get out of these operations." The CIA's response was very harsh. Asset Martin's exit request is red flag. Subject has too much sensitive information. Termination of cooperation not possible. Continue operations or face consequences. After this document, Dean Martin's relationship with the CIA had become tense. Reports from 1972 to 1975 showed that Dean was cooperating less and less. In 1976, Dean Martin completely withdrew from CIA operations. However, the CIA didn't stop following him. This time they started monitoring him as a security risk. Because Dean knew too many secrets, and there was a risk that he might expose these secrets. The revelation of Dean Martin's CIA connection revealed not only his life, but also how all of Hollywood and America operated. Dr. Jennifer Walsh experienced the biggest shock when she read the last pages of the file. there was a report about Dean Martin's death in 1995. Subject: Martin passed away on December 25, 1995. Cause of death officially reported as respiratory failure. However, subject had been showing signs of potential disclosure in final months. Medical examination reports attached. Case closed. This report stated that Dean Martin had shown potential disclosure signs before his death. Was Dean planning to expose CIA secrets before he died? The file also contained wiretapping records of phone conversations Dean had made in his final months. These records indicated that Dean had talked with journalist friends about old Hollywood secrets. After reading these files, Jennifer Walsh came to a big decision. This information needed to be shared with the public. Dean Martin's story wasn't just his personal story. This was the story of how the CIA used Hollywood, how they made celebrities into agents, and how America surveilled its own citizens. Jennifer Walsh's decision to publish these files would bring to light the dark secrets, not only of Dean Martin, but of the entire Cold War period. On August 15, 2020, Dr. Jennifer Walsh published an article in the Washington Post, Dean Martin, the entertainer who was also a CIA asset. The article had a bombshell effect. In the first 24 hours, the article was read 2 million times. Hollywood was shocked. Dean Martin's family initially denied these claims. However, Jennifer had documents in her hands. Dean Martin's daughter, Deanna Martin, made a press statement. "My father never talked about these matters, but if these documents are real, he may have been under pressure during that period." Frank Sinatra's family gave a much harsher reaction. "These claims are completely baseless. If Frank Sinatra had known that Dean Martin was monitoring him, their friendship would have ended long ago." However, there were also independent experts who proved the authenticity of the documents. Former CIA agent Robert Baer said the following about the matter. During this period, the CIA used many celebrities. Dean Martin being an agent is not surprising at all. Las Vegas was a very strategic place during that period. The revelation of Dean Martin's CIA files didn't just expose a celebrity's secret life, but also revealed America's paranoia of that period and Hollywood's dark face. After the publication of the CIA files, other shocking details also emerged. Sammy Davis Jr. connection. Dean Martin also reported Sammy Davis Jr. Civil rights activities to the CIA, because the CIA suspected that the civil rights movement might be communist infiltration. JFK assassination connection. Dean Martin's reports contained information about Dallas security concerns 2 months before the JFK assassination. How this information was used by the CIA is still unknown. Marilyn Monroe connection. Dean Martin's reports contained detailed information about Marilyn Monroe's relationship with the Kennedy brothers. Whether this information had any connection to Marilyn's death became a matter of debate. Las Vegas Mafia connection. Dean Martin regularly gave reports to the CIA about mafia activities in Las Vegas. Thanks to these reports, the FBI conducted many organized crime operations. The files also recorded the payments Dean Martin received. Between 1964 to 1976, he had received a total payment of $847,000. This was a very large sum for that period. The biggest question was still unanswered. Was Dean Martin's work for the CIA his own choice? Or was he forcibly recruited? And did this connection have anything to do with his death? In 2021, in a documentary made by BBC, Dean Martin's former bodyguard Tony Romano gave an interview. Romano said the following: "Dean never talked to me about these matters, but he went through very stressful periods in the late 1970s. He constantly thought someone was following him. He constantly used public phones, so his home phone wouldn't be wiretapped. He had become very paranoid." Romano's statement supported the claims that Dean Martin was under CIA pressure. According to Dr. Jennifer Walsh's research, Dean Martin's story showed how America didn't trust its own citizens during the Cold War period and how it used them. Dean Martin wasn't just a famous entertainer, says Jennifer Walsh. He was also a victim of America's security paranoia of that period. The CIA used him, but he also suffered for life because of this situation. The revelation of Dean Martin's CIA files revealed not only a celebrity's secret life, but also the spirit of an era. Cold War paranoia, security concerns. and the state's suspicion of its own citizens. Dean Martin perhaps became part of a game he never wanted. The price of being a famous entertainer was becoming an agent for his country and monitoring even his closest friends. This story teaches us, fame and celebrity always come with a price. And sometimes this price can be as heavy as losing your own identity. Behind Dean Martin's cool image, there was perhaps not cool at all. Pain, stress, and forced loyalty. While he smiled at the microphone, nobody knew the weight of the secrets he carried inside.